Welcome to another Pint with Seaniebee, coming to you from a take two, actually, of a very cool bar in Sarajevo called Meeting Point. And it is probably the hipster hangout. It's where all the kind of cool movie type people hang out. We were originally out in the bar. We had to come in here because it was way too noisy to record a podcast, especially because the person we have on the podcast today is such a successful and a woman who has got, by her own admission, wears 1,000 hats. It'll take a few minutes for me to tell you all that she does. She has a PhD in filmmaking and literature. She is a professor of screenwriting at the college here. She's a screenwriter and producer who's made 4 movies. Her movie Snow won the Cannes Grand Prix a few years ago. She's also the head of the Bosnian Filmmakers Association, and she's the chief selector, which this job in itself is my golden job. She has to pick which movies go into the Sarajevo Film Festival, which is a film festival that's one of the fastest growing in the world. It has been, it came from slow beginnings in '95, but is now really one of the top European film festivals. I'm welcoming to a pint with Seaniebee. We're having, I don't know what we're having. We're having sort of lemonade with vodka. So
not me.
A pint. Oh no, she's sorry. She's not. She's only having lemonade. I'm having vodka, of course, because I'm Irish.
Watching a serious film afterwards.
And so. The cliche. I'm welcoming to a pint with Seaniebee, Elma Tataragic.
Good enough.
Okay.
Good enough.
I'm having great fun in the Balkans with the language and the actual spelling. There's very few vowels over here, so they'll start a word with a Z, and then they say, "I know, let's put a C in, and then what? A G, and then what? A J, and then what? A T, and then maybe an I." We just throw one vowel in, so it's a land with very few vowels.
Yeah, and we tend to eat them in Sarajevo, especially.
They eat their vowels here,
yes.
People. I think she means that in a guttural sense and not in any sort of literal one. But this lady is the real deal. Where do I start talking to you about? What do I start talking? You tell me what I should talk to you about, because I could go in any direction here.
Well, we could start from the beginning, which could be quite boring.
No. Listen. Well, the idea of the podcast is people's lives.
I wanted to say that when you were introducing me, I thought, oh my God, somebody might think I'm a serious person. I'm not serious at all.
No, you'll hear this through the podcast. She's a laugh, and she believes in having fun. But she's also said, I was doing some research before this interview, and she said she'd quite happily sit through 15 hours of movies in a row.
Yeah, I can do that. I do that a lot. And it's not such a fun job, as you said.
Yeah, lots of movies are shit.
Most of the films I see are really, really bad.
Yeah.
It's not so difficult to pick out the good ones. Sometimes it's very difficult to choose what is like the top 10 of them, or the top 5, or sometimes the films are fighting for only one spot in the program, and I have 5 on the list, and every one of them has a certain quality. But unfortunately, most of the films are not really that good, and sometimes it's quite difficult to sit through 5 films a day.
You did say that you like to watch every movie from start to finish.
Yeah.
As if it's suddenly going to get brilliant with 10 minutes to go. I mean, can't you just shut off if it's really crap?
I'm starting to learn. To learn after 20 years, 22 years of working on a film festival. There is one thing. I'm also a filmmaker, and I know how difficult it is to make something. It's really difficult. It's so easy to play the movie and say, oh my God, what is this? Look at this actor. Look at the story. Can you see this image and say it's bad and just shut it down? But there are people spending years and years and years of their life and of their passion to make a film, and that's why I always feel obliged to see as much as I can.
Do you give feedback?
Well, not to every film. It would be impossible. It would really be impossible. But I know a lot of people. Especially as the Sarajevo Film Festival is focused on the region. I know most of the filmmakers, I know most of the producers, directors, screenwriters, actors as well, and we have become friends in the past 22 years, as the festival has grown, as I have grown, they have also grown, we have grown together, we have grown up together. So for a lot of people that I know, I do give feedbacks, and sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes it's not easy for a person to accept that their film is not good
enough.
It's not successful, and it will not be successful. And sometimes I have had situations when people get mad at me and they stop talking to me for about 2 or 3 years, and then again, somehow it evens up.
Is it very political?
No. If people are sending me their film, if they're opening me their heart, and if they're asking for my opinion, I think I should be honest and say what I think.
Yeah. I mean, like, I can't watch horror movies because they scare me, but so I'd find it hard to watch one, and B, work out which one is any good to go into a festival. How do you?
Well, I'm lucky, They're
you like
not,
every genre.
They're not. No, they're not. You would be lucky in my place actually, because there are not a lot of horror movies made, especially in this part of the world.
Yeah.
So I don't really get many films to see. In fact, I did enjoy a lot of horror movies when I was a kid.
Right.
They were my favorites. I would wake up at 2:00 in the morning and go to my mom's and dad's or to living room and to hide and watch the films. I would scare my brother out by setting up some scenes from horror movies.
Glad you're not my sister.
I mean, if my brother was here, he would tell you a lot of his traumas from his early childhood came from me and my love for horror movies. But there are not a lot of genre films in general coming from this part of the world.
What are the main films here about?
They're dramas. In the past 20 years, the whole region has been really talking about transition. So usually it's about comparing, the communist times to these new times.
Yeah.
And of course, predominantly in ex-Yugoslavia, there have been a lot of films about the war.
Yeah.
This is fading out as now there is a new generation of filmmakers who were born in the late 80s and beginning of 90s. So they don't actually remember the war.
Yeah.
They have a second-hand take on the war, not a first-hand one. So
Am
they
I
are
right in
starting
saying there's a
to
growing
do new things.
nostalgia for the past, for the former Yugoslavia?
There has always been a nostalgia for the
Right,
past.
right.
I mean, especially in Bosnia. What is strange is that there is a nostalgia among young people who have never lived in Yugoslavia.
Yeah.
That is a little bit strange because you're nostalgic about something which you don't actually know.
Yeah.
So it sounds like sort of a Weltschmerz in a way.
Yeah.
You're nostalgic for a myth. You're
Yes.
nostalgic for something you've heard second or third hand from. So it's
You
that
did
is
have
a little bit
a
strange.
better football team
I'm
before
not-
the breakup. I know you probably know interest in football, but
actually,
Yugoslavia had a very good football team.
Yeah.
back
I
then.
actually remember watching some games with my father. We used to live. I grew up in Iran, so we came back.
So you're born here, and then
I'm
you
born
moved
here.
to Iran.
Then
Why
we were
did you move
traveling
to Iran?
around. My father got a job in Iran, so we moved
What was
to
he doing?
Iran. Electric engineer, specialized in something I can't even remember what. Something very complex.
Right. Probably the nuclear program.
No,
Sorry,
no.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
It's not that serious. Otherwise, maybe we would have won the war.
Yeah.
We're still here, So basically, we came back just a few months before the war broke out.
That was bad timing.
Well, my parents were sort of hippies. They did not believe in spoiling kids, in original Levi's, in taking holidays on a plane or a normal bus, but by hitchhiking from Iran to Sarajevo, for
suckling
example.
at your mother's breast, yeah.
Well, they didn't believe the war would actually start. They were
But it
clueless.
wasn't just them. A lot of people were
A lot of people.
surprised. That it snuck up on them the way it did, and then suddenly the fragmentation was so vicious.
Well, a lot of people, but mine were especially out of the whole thing because
Yeah.
we've been living abroad since '86.
Right.
So when we came back in '91, they've been away. So they had some fragments of information coming to them. And remember, it was not the time of Facebook or internet,
course,
so it was pretty much limited to what they could really
So
feel.
how did you go to school if you had wandering parents like that? Did they
No,
homeschool?
we went right to a regular school.
Right.
They were really wandering parents only during holidays.
Okay.
Of course, and they believed in not spoiling us during school days and holidays as well. But it was fun. I remember these vacations vividly, hitchhiking from Tehran to Tabriz, from Tabriz through the border to Turkey. It's a crazy concept to do that.
You remember those days? Do you?
Of course. I remember them.
Like you used to be sitting on a dusty road with like hitchhiking and a truck comes around every hour or something.
Exactly. I remember once we were on a truck from the border, Iranian-Turkish border, from this little town called Doğu Bayazit, burning hot. There were no buses. Iraq is just around the corner, so there was still the war between Iran and Iraq, so it was quite dangerous to be there. There was a curfew at a certain moment, and I remember a truck stopped. The guy opened the door, and then he didn't speak any language except Turkish, so he said, okay, come on in. There were four of us, and it was illegal to drive four of us, so me and my brother, we had to be at the back of the truck, hidden. And the funny thing was that the only word that he could understand was my name, because my name is Elma, which means apple in Turkish. My mother loved apples when she was pregnant, and one of her friends was studying Turkish. She said, okay, if you don't know, Elma means an apple. So basically all the time he had a bunch of apples, green apples, He was cleaning apples on his shirt and just handing them to me and saying, Elma, Elma. So it was, and we spent almost 20 hours with him. I mean, it was not such a...
Was your first school in Tehran?
It was a great school in Tehran.
Right.
It was a beautiful school. It was actually an American school.
Yeah.
So it was really a good school. It was just my father had a contract. The contract expired. He had another job somewhere else, but the deal was that he would come back to Sarajevo for about 8 months to finish up and wrap his job up here. And then in September '92 we were supposed to be moving. That of course didn't happen because of the war, and not only because of the war. My father had a chance to go together with us to leave. But in May, when the city was shut down, he told my mother, "I cannot leave now. I would really feel bad to leave my city now at this moment." And my mother said, "If you're not leaving, we're not leaving either, because we don't know how long this will last, and we don't know what will happen with our family." So the only decision they actually took was to stay, one of them, and the other one was to stay together. That's how I stayed here. I mean,
and this siege went on for 4 years, 5 years.
Yeah, it went on.
As I've said on a couple of occasions when I've talked to people on my trip here, when you're actually living history, you don't realize you're living it because it's just another day, and you've got to get up and find bread or whatever it is.
Well, my understanding of the siege was very different from my parents' understanding of the siege. For me, at the beginning, it was very cool. I thought I was a hero from a film, living in extraordinary circumstances. It so sounded like I'm a real punk, living in punk times. And for a young nihilist as me, those days were really great. Now, when I think about it, I don't know how we survived, and I don't know how my parents got where did they get their strength from. And the more I think about it, the more I know I've been sedated during the war in a way. I lived in my own little teenage bubble. There were horrible times, like watching my friends die in front of me and being wounded. They were horrible times, but I've never really realized how serious the whole situation really is. And I remember when I when I finished third grade of high school, so I was 16 and a half, I wanted to work. And I found a job with Obala Art Center, who then later on organized the Sarajevo Film Festival, who was actually organizing a lot of concerts at the Academy, Film Academy, Film and Theater Academy Club, concerts, exhibitions, and I always wanted to be there. And once I decided to go to the cinema, and then I saw this bunch of people, in this bar, and I thought, this is where I want to be. So I came up to them and I said, I want a job, and I got a job. So I came to my parents. I was 16 and a half, and I said, listen, I have a job. They said, great, that's perfect. But then after a few months, for me, it was impossible to travel to my house from the office. My school was near the office. This is right,
still bang in the middle of the siege.
But it was in the middle of the siege. It was very dangerous.
So were people still going to the cinema then?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I thought there was no power, right?
Absolutely. Well, you could always find a way.
Generator, yeah.
And generators, and we were paying tickets for. The way to pay the tickets was with cigarettes. So it was really. So after half a year, I said to my mother and father, I'm moving. I'm going to live in the office. They set up a little apartment near the office, so I started living in the office, and now I realize, I think, oh my God, it is totally mad. I mean, if I was a mother to a 16-year-old in the middle of war, I would tie her to I don't know,
the basement or something,
to the basement and say, no, you're not leaving. Are you crazy? But they let me go. And
did you always have a love of movies?
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
I think it's not only love for movies, but it's love for storytelling. Yeah. I believe I remember when I was a kid, we used to have a little group, 5, 6, 7 of us, always making a theater play for the whole street and performing and getting paid with little money for the tickets and then trying to set up things. I was great at writing. I was writing everybody's essays in the classroom, especially the ones who hated writing. Yeah. So I would write them and help them out. But also, I think my mother, she loves movies, and her favorite fun time is watching films. She, even now, for her, a weekend off means From 9 o'clock in the morning until 1 a.m. she's watching films, only stopping for having coffee with my father.
This is clearly where you got it from.
And I remember when my father used to travel a lot, like me now, and then we would have these long weekends where we would lie in bed and make cinema in our house and watch so many films with my mother.
How many movies do you reckon you've watched in your life?
I have no idea. I think a year that I see about 700.
Wow. I'm going to ask you...
number, including short films.
Okay, I'm going to ask you now, but you don't have to answer till the end of the podcast, what your favourite movie of all time is.
Okay.
So the war, when it finished, did you... Again, a lot of people said it just... The end of it crept up on them as well, because suddenly, is it really over? Is it not over? Are we, when did life get back to normal, and what happened then?
I don't know. For me, it kind of got normal when I enrolled at the Academy of Performing Arts. This was in September '96. So basically, it was roughly 10 months after the Dayton Agreement has been signed, or maybe 6 months after the city has been kind of freed, so to speak.
Yeah. Was that a joyful time?
I think it was a hysteric time. I think we were not very much aware of what was happening. There was no joyful time. I mean, in general, there were very few joyful times. In my opinion, I think it must have been the concert of U2, one of the really biggest joyful times we have experienced.
I mean, you can't fault Bono for trying. He did try and make the
world and it was
it.
amazing. And this was in '97 September, I think.
Yeah.
It was really amazing, and I think it was really one of the rare moments where we felt that we are alive.
Well, the world is watching, because that was the big problem. You were all abandoned by the world. I mean, that was, or by Europe. It was. I remember growing up, and everyone was just
tired.
Well, tired, but also helpless and angry that no one was fixing this and not really understanding what the hell was going on and who the good guys were and the bad guys, and why is Croatia blowing these guys up and now these guys are blowing. It was just I
always confusing.
Well, no, I always felt that if it happened today with all of the technology that we have, it'd be a lot more clear what the hell's going on. There would be a lot more. Everyone's now a reporter because everyone has a camera in their phone. And there would be an awful lot more noise created about what was going on. I think it probably would have been.
I don't know. Well, on the other hand, with the stigma on Islam, maybe it would not have. I mean, it was before 9/11, and I think it would have been very different today. I mean, the fact that there are a lot of Muslim people would really influence a lot of decisions. It was very painful to know that nobody cares. For me, it was more painful to watch my parents feel the pain because nobody really cares.
How did they come out of it?
Well, my parents have changed their lives entirely. They don't live the same life as they did before the war. My father was 46 when the war started. My mother was younger than me now. She was 38. My father had an amazing career, and it was just it was in its peak, so it stopped. My mother kind of picked up quicker in a way because my father lost his job. The whole industry collapsed. He got really depressed. The war didn't work out the way he thought it would. Nobody won. Everybody lost.
Yeah.
Then my father started beehiving.
Brilliant.
And then they decided to renovate their little house 40 kilometers from Sarajevo. And very soon, in 2000, they moved. Yeah. And they changed their life. Before they were surrounded by friends. I grew up on parties, Fridays and Saturdays. There were parties all night long at my parents' house, at their friends' places. And they were going to see films. They were going to theater. They were at concerts, dancing. The house was always full of people with loud music. That's how I grew up. Suddenly they went to nature. They're more or less alone, surrounded by a few dogs. Yeah. The beehiving, and of course some friends, some family. Yeah. Their social life is not even 10% of what it used to be. So they really changed their life in this sense, and that's what I'm doing tomorrow. In fact, I'm going to visit them.
Hello to the Tataragic or whatever. Sorry,
No,
that's
that's my
Oh,
husband's
that's your husband's
name.
name.
Yeah,
What are
so
they- what are
Haji
your parents-
Rejepovic. Even worse. Even worse for
Hello
you.
to the Habsburg
No, but you can
Republic.
say hello to Silva and Omer.
Hello, Silva and Omer.
Yeah, they'll
if
be
you're
happy.
listening, and this will be coming out a little bit later in the year, but
They'll be
here we
quite
go.
happy.
So you were in film school. When was the spark lit in you that said, I could do this, I could write movies, I could make movies, and how did that come about?
Well, during the war, I didn't really know what. I finished high school. I was already working for Obala. We already had a film department. I was very active in this film department. I was organizing different programs, Edinburgh Film Festival, the review of Edinburgh Film Festival, Locarno Film Festival, a lot of things. But I did not have a sense that I need to go and finish my formal education because it was in the middle of the war, and I thought that I want to live.
Right.
And I thought that educating during the war for me was not an option. So kind of when the war stopped, then I thought, okay, now I can continue with normal life in a way. So I thought, okay, maybe I should now go to the school and see how that works out. And it was great. It really completely changed my life. From beginning of '94 until '96, I was surrounded by amazing people.
Yeah.
But I thought I need to change the scenery and I need to do something for myself. And then I enrolled the academy, and suddenly, I found out that, this island which I have is not the only island I could have. There are also other islands. And it's funny because, it's one door to another. Our office of the festival was just next door to the academy, but it was a completely new world, which
Right.
I have not discovered until then. And then, when I was at the academy, I realized I cannot live without this world and I cannot live without that world.
Okay.
So I must find a way to connect these two worlds.
Right. The two worlds being just writing and
writing and teaching,
Teaching,
and
okay.
also programming and
Okay.
staying with the film festival.
Okay.
And then when you're surrounded by people who are also writing, who are directing, who are acting, one thing leads to another.
Yeah.
Suddenly you're in the middle of a play, you're working on a new play passionately.
Yeah.
Suddenly you're working on a film with your colleagues. Suddenly you're starting to produce. It just sucks you in, especially if you have passion for that.
So you started doing short films. Was Snow your first feature or second?
First feature, I did a few
So
short
straight
films.
out of the bat, you won a Grand Prix at Cannes for your first feature.
Yeah.
How many times has that happened in the future in the history of film?
Well, no, it's
Matt
not so
Damon
rare.
did
It's
it.
not so rare.
Matt did it.
Remember what
Rocky
happened
did
last
it.
year? Last one, Nemes, the Hungarian filmmaker.
Okay, right, yeah.
Well, I know you're not so much into
No.
Hungarian filmmaking, but the guy who won the Oscar
Yes.
for the best foreign film,
Yeah.
he actually made a first feature. Went to Cannes, won the award,
Okay.
and then blah blah blah. All the
Okay.
thing which happened. So it's not so rare. But before that, we did a film in. That was more a miracle. The short film that we did, I was a collaborator on the script. Director was Aida Begic, who also directed Snow. She was on her fourth year. I mean, she was finishing. She was doing her final film. And I was on my third year or something like that, or second year of studying, I don't remember. And we made this short, and we sent it to Cannes, and we got accepted for the film school program.
This was
Cine
the
Fundación.
what was it?
It was a first death experience.
First Dead. So tell me what that was about and where you got the idea for
It's
it.
about a guy who needs to get his ID in order to sort out his, social status. But he
Right.
cannot get his ID because he has been identified as dead during the war.
okay.
So he's alive, and he's trying to prove that he's not dead.
Yeah.
But for everybody, it's much easier to consider him dead than to bring
Was
him
it
back to life.
serious or comedic?
It's a black comedy. He's also a talented. He's making comics.
Right.
So
okay.
you have part of the film in
Animation.
comics,
Okay.
and part of the film. Of course, during the film, he finds a girl. Boy
Yeah,
meets
okay.
girl, and he doesn't find his identity. I mean, he doesn't get his ID, but he
Right.
finds a girl, and through her, it's a kind of happy end. They drive into sunset. So there is.
What age were you when you made that?
23.
And then you were invited to go to Cannes to with it?
Yes, but
How exciting
that
was
year
that?
I couldn't go.
why?
I didn't have money.
Why didn't Cannes cough up for it?
They did it. They only covered it for the director, and I was invited, but I couldn't go. I didn't have. It was for me. It was just too much money.
Did she love it? Did she have a great time?
Yeah. I mean, it was great. I mean, I went to Cannes just 2 years after that. I mean, I don't regret it because I've been there plenty of times, and it was just not an option. It's so expensive to go to Cannes even today. But then, as a student,
was that the first Bosnian? One of the first Bosnian films?
Well, it was first student Bosnian film to be in Cannes at this section. There were other films even before the war, Bosnian films in Cannes, of course, Emir Kusturica, but also Ademir Kenović.
How important do you think a good idea, a good strong idea is versus a well-made movie? Do you give credit to ideas or production?
Well, for me, idea is number one. The main idea, the drive behind the idea, for me, that is really number one. And sometimes I can even close an eye on certain, low production value and because of the idea. But of course, it's not enough to have a good idea. It takes a lot of time.
It has to be watchable.
Yeah, it has to be watchable. It has to have a sense of craft as well. I think everybody has ideas, but the craft is something that not everyone has.
So is that the excitement of that led you to Snow? And tell me what Snow was about.
Snow is a film set in a village, a remote village in 1998, so right after the war. In this village there are only women and children living, only one old man who survived because their men and sons have been taken away during the war. These women were refugees. They came back to their little destroyed village because they believe that their husbands are alive and they will come back. So if they are alive, they will come back to their village. They will not look for them in Sweden or Germany or Norway. Meanwhile, as it's very remote, they are trying to survive and they're trying to prepare for winter. They have a lot of fruits and vegetables, but trying to sell these fruits and vegetables, it's not so easy if you're living on top of a mountain. And one day a man comes offering them money to buy off their land. And now they are in a dilemma. Should they sell or should they stay? So it's about this dilemma, to stay somewhere which is not really generous to you, or to leave and forget about the place which was the only place generous to you. It's also about globalization. It's not only about war. It's also about this globalization and selling and buying and everything which is happening not only in Bosnia but I think everywhere. But it has been quite successful. It's one of the last Bosnian films which has been seen by 70,000 people in cinemas in Bosnia. It has been to about 100 film festivals. It won about 30-something awards. So it was really successful.
So and this was still in your 20s?
No, this was already in my 30s.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, my beginning 30s. But we started developing the film when we were in our 20s.
No.
And then we decided that we will produce it on our own. We set up our own company. I was the producer. And I don't know how I did it. Honestly, when I think about it, I must have been crazy because it's such a big risk. It's such a big project. It's €1 million thing.
Yeah.
It's not.
You shot it here?
We shot it in Gorazde. It's eastern Bosnia, up in the mountain.
You're in charge of the Bosnian Filmmakers Association or board, or whatever it is. I read that's been going since 1950.
Yeah, that's an old association, one of the rare old things that have survived during all this. So is there
a very rich heritage of filmmaking here?
There is a very rich heritage, especially in Bosnia. Not a lot of films in terms of numbers, even then when we produced a lot. But in terms of quality, in terms of what the films meant, in terms of what came out from Bosnian storytelling, film-wise, it was very important, even in ex-Yugoslavian setting. Yeah. So there is a strong heritage. We do not come from nowhere. I mean, the whole situation with Bosnian cinema does not come from, it's not really the war that inspired us. It was.
And where were the movies traveling east mainly back in the day? They were movies that would be shown.
They were traveling everywhere. They were also shown in Cannes. They were shown in Venice. They were shown in Berlin. They were also shown in the East, Far East, especially China, for example. One of the most important films made in Sarajevo called Das ist Walter brani Sarajevo.
Yes. The guy with the glasses, the spy.
Walter, the defender of Sarajevo.
Yes. This is a World War II spy, I suppose. Would be the word.
Fighting for the liberation of our city.
He was like a superhero.
Exactly. He's a Superman of Sarajevo. It was a huge hit in China.
It's weird that sometimes
even today, if I meet somebody from China, they will you're from Sarajevo.
It's weird, isn't it?
They would sing me the song, the title song from the film, and it's really weird.
So if someone had to watch a Bosnian movie, because a lot of the people listening to this are from listening in America and whatever, apart from Snow, what were the other Bosnian movies someone should watch?
Definitely Walter, the Defender of Sarajevo.
Okay.
It's really a cult thing. And anything you can put your hands on of this director. His name is Hajrudin Šiba Krvavac, and he's the inventor of a movement, of a cinema movement in the 70s in ex-Yugoslavia called Partizan Western. So it's really a specific genre, very specific to ex-Yugoslavia and also to this guy in Bosnia. So any movie you can put your hands on from this guy, Hajrudin Šiba Krvavac, will be really a very good ride, a joyful ride. Definitely No Man's Land, I would suggest.
I have seen that.
I would suggest Grbavica by Jasmila Žbanić.
The links to them or their wiki page will be on the blurb for this podcast, so check them out. So part of the reason you have all these hats is because you were it was almost geography. You were in a building that had all these things, as you said, nearby.
Interesting things.
You were dipping in and out of them, right?
Exactly.
And meanwhile, you were getting like this professorship, right, in screenwriting, and then you were a teacher?
15 years ago, I think. Was it 15? Even when I was studying, I started working with my professor of scriptwriting at that time. But then in 2002, I became an assistant at scriptwriting. It's really one of the most beautiful things that I do, to be surrounded by young people.
Are you seeing a big increase in the quality of talent?
It really depends on year from year. Sometimes you have a class which is amazing.
Right.
Whatever they do, it's brilliant. But sometimes it happens that it just doesn't work out. So it's very uneven.
I mean, it's easier to make stuff now, right? Because we have all the technology.
It's much easier, but they make less, which is crazy.
Really.
I think the overflow of information is somehow stopping them from working.
Yeah.
Because they can easily see everything, and I think then
it overwhelms them.
It overwhelms them and somehow frightens them or paralyzes them. So it's strange. They know a lot.
I get that. I understand that, because I think there's also a feeling like this. My idea in this world of ideas, who's going to pay it any attention?
Exactly.
Whereas if you're on your own and you only see a few things, you don't know what's going on.
You're isolated. You don't care what's happening. You just want to do your thing.
That's a very good point. I find it I've just spent the last while living in America, and I find it really annoying the way kids, if ever there was pap being fed to people, and I think the lazy way American filmmaking has gone to just the next Marvel comic with a massive budget and a big director. Even the Star Wars stuff was I thought was terrible. I went to see Michael Moore's new movie, which is fantastic. I don't know whether it's come out here yet. I don't think it's hit Europe yet.
No,
but Where Will We Invade Next? But I was at that. It got a round of applause in America, which rarely happens, afterwards. But as I got up to leave, I found out I was the youngest person in the room, right? Everyone was like, no wonder they were clapping, because they were old people going, can someone please do something about the way our country's going? And I was saying to my girlfriend, why can't her daughter's school be showing this movie? And teaching people, she wants to go and see the new Daredevil movie or whatever.
That's true.
And it's just the learning function coupled with the cultural function, coupled with the ideas to help the world. And I sound like an old fogey here. I sound like kids these days, but I really worry about that. And
I'm also worried about the quality of information they're getting, because it seems to be very superficial. It seems to be very trivial, like the movies they're just like. They only have a sentence of everything. Nothing is going deeper than that, which also affects their curiosity. They think they know because they saw it on Twitter or they saw it on Facebook, but they do not go into it. They don't ask questions. And I think what is missing among everything, including the educational system, is the curiosity.
How do we fix that?
I really don't know. I'm in the process of education as well, and sometimes it's very difficult to fix it. But it's possible, you have to you have to have a lot of energy, you have to infect them, and you have to be there with them. I think the attention that they have is very limited because of the information they're getting.
I think this is the problem. We not just kids. We all
everyone.
have too much information.
Yeah, I have too much information.
Overload, and trying then, and that can quickly lead to nihilism. That can quickly lead to I don't care about the world anymore. It's too depressing. That can lead into I have no time to be creative. I have no time to read.
How can I compete with this world?
And you then go, well, what are we actually doing? We're probably becoming more narcissistic. We're probably feeling like, that we need to document our lives through Facebook and Pinterest and Instagram and all this kind of stuff. And the room for movies and television is going through a golden age at the moment in terms of the quality. I don't know what it's like here, but I think here you said that the key. I mean, when you come out,
it's in the Bronze Age.
It is. When you come out of
in every sense of that.
When you come out of a war zone, or you come out of an economic, if you come out of an economic collapse, the last thing that people spend their money on is arts and culture.
But that's not true.
Really? Okay,
but
tell me why.
That is absolutely not true. During the war, there were a lot of exhibitions. There were a lot of theater plays.
Okay.
There were, the scene was alive. There were concerts every night, even though there was curfew. The first war cinema opened during the war, called Apollo. People were coming. They were giving their last cigarette to see a film. They were going to theater. They were risking their lives to be part of something. It's not only escapism. I think it's a proof that you're leading a normal life.
Yes.
And you want to hear a story. It's normal. It's in our blood to hear stories, to be someone else for an hour, 2 hours, to sympathize with somebody's tragedy, to laugh at somebody's comedy.
Yes.
And after the war, people were coming to the film festival. They're even coming to the film festival today. What I think is missing is additional. I think our educational system is not really supporting the young generation. I cannot blame them. If you look at our books for elementary school, they're outdated. So there is this very old system. When they come home, they're surrounded by iPads, iPhones, whatever applications. They can, be in somebody's room, 3D, virtual reality. So they're confused. They don't know where they are.
Interesting. It's hard not to. It's hard to disagree with that thinking. I think you're spot on. What advice? Just changing tack a bit. What advice would you give to a filmmaker who was maybe a first-time filmmaker who was trying to woo you with their film to get picked for a film festival?
Well, to make a good film.
That was a really long question and a very short answer.
Just make a good film and give it to me.
But what sort of pitfalls do people make? What mistakes do people make a lot that could be avoided?
One of the biggest mistakes, especially in this part of the world, is that they don't work enough on the script.
Right.
They have an interesting idea, which sometimes does not have a full potential for a fiction film.
Yeah.
Instead of working, they hurry up and try to, find the financing and try to shoot it, thinking that they will fix it during the shoot. You cannot fix the script during the shoot.
Yeah.
And I think one of the most important things that we did as a film festival was to develop a script developing platform called Cinelink, which has really helped a lot of filmmakers to realize how important it is to develop something, to nurture something. Yeah. Also, to listen to other people's comments, but also to be careful who they give their projects to read. Right. Because not everybody is really fit to give comments, and not everybody should, actually.
I found that as well. My thing was I released screenplays too early, because you get excited, because you've kind of done the second or third draft, and you need to do 12 drafts. You need to really fix them. You send them out to people. People will read them once. Maybe your really close friends will read them twice for you, but that's it. And then the other thing was I found at some point having to just ignore your friends' comments, because it's your piece, and you decide when it's finished, and you say, yes, I know, maybe there's no thread here, but I believe it works as my piece of art.
It's very difficult to find the balance between the comments and between what you want to do. But that's why the developing is important, because it makes you realize what's really important for you as a writer, as an artist.
We've got to finish because Emma's going to see a Hungarian movie tonight. It's true to form and her job. We asked at the top of the podcast what your favourite movie of all time is.
I must say something so cheesy. Everybody's going
mine's
through
very
a moment
cheesy.
now. It's very cheesy, but a film that I really enjoy so much and I can see over and over again is Once Upon a Time in America.
You're very close to mine in title.
Which one is yours?
It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh, that's also great. That's also great.
Once Upon a Time is very long.
It's amazingly short. You know, when you start watching it, it sucks you in.
How long is it though?
It's 4 hours. It's 4 hours.
No, it is magnificent.
It's magnificent. For me, it's like 4 minutes in a way. You know, whenever I sit down and start, from wherever I start, I just sit down. I'm there. And also, I must say that I love these films from this time. You know, Godfather, Scarface. Scarface is one of my favorite films, and Stanley Kubrick. I'm really, I really like it.
The HAL situation with Outside the Space at the end of 2001, where the computer turns sentient. I mean, that's where we're heading. We're heading
yes,
that.
Exactly.
We're heading that way. And then
a visionary.
Give my listeners one movie they would never have heard of from the countries that are involved in the Sarajevo Film Festival that they need to find immediately. One.
Oh, that is so difficult. But let me think about last year. Well, I would say Mustang.
Okay.
They might have heard about it.
Okay.
But I would say Mustang. It's
Lastly,
a Turkish-French co-production.
Lastly, what advice do you give to your younger self looking back?
Just go ahead and do whatever you like, but without the angriness that I used to have before.
Oh, I was the same. I'm calming down a bit.
I'm calming down. I was so angry.
Because actually, the reason is the things we're angry about are stupid. I find. You know?
Very stupid, very unimportant. No, not really angry. I was so intense.
Yeah, same. I was like, I'd get irritated about things.
Yeah, I would honestly freak out, and I would scare a lot of people away from me. That's the only advice I would give to myself. I mean, other things, of course, fall down, make mistakes.
You seem very content with what you've done, and I think that I think you're still
I'm not so content.
Passionate. No, but you're passionate. No, you're passionate, and you're not boastful.
There's still time.
I know.
I guess there's still time.
We're not old yet. We're going to keep tracking on.
Well, we are older, but cleverer and wiser, I hope.
That was a great conversation, Elma Tataragic. Thanks a million for coming on the Pint with Seaniebee.
Thank you.
And listen, good luck with the continued success of the Sarajevo Film Festival. Any of you budding filmmakers there, you should check it out if you haven't heard of it. It's one of the big up and comers, and certainly in Europe it's challenging some of the big names. Anna, thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you as well.